So how many of you have ever played the game telephone? Familiar with the game, right? How you tell stories. Well, I want to share with you a story that I've heard, and I don't know how many times it's been repeated, and I don't really know all the details of the story, but I've gone around when I was at Unity Village, and I've heard it many times since then, about a student who was at Unity Village studying with Charles Fillmore at the time, and we talk a lot about the spiritual aspects, and so this student was talking to Mr. Fillmore, sharing with him. I heard it might have been Dorothy Pearson, for those of you who know Dorothy Pearson, who was sharing with Mr. Fillmore, I've had these beautiful experiences. My dreams have been so vivid, and I'm just having all of this spiritual things happening in my life, and all of this stuff is going on in my consciousness. And Mr. Fillmore was listening, and he was saying, Dorothy, that's great, but can you pay your rent? And so I thought, wow, that's an interesting idea, that sometimes we get caught up in these really spiritual ways of understanding and learning and teaching, and what we know about, what we say about unity is that unity is positive, practical, progressive Christianity. That it's not just about, the spiritual aspects, but it's also about putting that into practice. Bring it into demonstration. And we say that we're progressive in that we believe in things evolve, and our understanding continues to evolve, and our scientific discoveries continue to evolve. And so we don't stay stuck in the past. We don't really stay stuck in this one way of looking at things, but we try to embrace all of that and be progressive in our understanding about how the universe works and how Jesus' teaching and other spiritual masters' teaching work in congruence with all of that. And so we are positive and practical and progressive in our understanding. And I say that as well because, as I shared with you last week, I've been inspired to go back and begin to read and study some of the earlier unity teachings, some of our foundational teachings in unity, because I believe in some ways I've gotten away from that. And so I'm reading a lot of Mr. Fillmore's writings. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar, Charles Fillmore was one of the co-founders of the Unity movement. He and his wife, Myrtle Fillmore, were the co-founders of our movement. And he did a lot of writing beginning in the late 1800s and up until they made their transitions. And so there's a lot of evolution in his writing as well. And so I'm going back and reading some of that and refamiliarizing myself with some of the foundational teachings about how we apply these principles in our lives. How applying these principles in our lives can transform not only our consciousness, which is primary, but also transform what we manifest and demonstrate in our lives. Physically, emotionally, financially, relationally, in all of those ways. And so I'm looking at that again and wanting to be more conscious of practicing those principles. And so I'm sharing my journey with that with you on Sunday mornings, and I hope it's going to be beneficial for all of us to come into a better and a more clearer understanding of those principles. And reading Charles Fillmore again, I'm reminded of how absolute he was in his belief. Absolute and convinced he was of what he was teaching and what he was speaking. Not just because somebody told him, not just because he had the revelation of this truth, but because he saw it in action. That Myrtle Fillmore demonstrated healing in her physical body, and so did he, and other people around them were demonstrating these things in their lives. They were very clear. And they were very clear about this idea that thinking, or the quality of our thoughts or our thinking, that everything begins with thinking. That our thoughts create our reality. Now, we know a little bit more about that now, but that was not a new concept. for them. They learned it as well, but it's an ancient concept. There are many teachers who say the same thing, and so I wanted to share with you a few of those this morning. This is from the Upanishad, which is the Hindu text, part of the Vedas. And it says, "Let every man strive to purify his thoughts. What a man thinketh, that is he. This is the eternal mystery. Dwelling within himself with thoughts serene, he will find imperishable happiness. Man becomes that on what he thinks." And then the Buddha said, "All that we are is a result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become." And Marcus Aurelius, "Your disposition will be suitable to that which you think most frequently on. For the soul is, as it were, tinged with the color and complexion of its own thoughts. Your life is what your thoughts make it." And then our scripture in Proverbs, we read, "As someone thinks within himself, so is he." And then Jesus says, "It is done unto you as you believe." Matthew 9:29. And so this idea that what we create is a result of what we think habitually. And we know now that it also includes our feeling. It creates this energy field that we believe goes out into this universal medium, the substance, and it creates and it responds, the law of attraction, the law of mind action, all of those things that we talk about. And what I'm aware of is that I believe that we have somehow watered down the message, that we have not been as true to the message as maybe we might have been. And I have a curiosity about that. I have a curiosity that maybe that's why we see the decline in our churches, that we see the decline in the people in our movements, the numbers of people in our movements, because we're not as true to the message. And what I want to say to you today is that I realize that I have sometimes resisted being as true and as clear to that message, because I know sometimes it can stimulate things for us. That it can, when I say to you, everything that you are experiencing in your life is a result of your thinking, your way of thinking, your habitual way of thinking, and you are experiencing something in your life that is unwanted, something that is awful, something that is scary. You may be having a physical disease, and I say to you, everything that you experience in your life is because of your thinking. That can bring up stuff, right? Guilt and shame. It can bring up that stuff for us when we believe that, and things that come up for us if we're finishing some financial distress or a job, or we have a relationship, an abusive relationship, and I say to you, "Oh, well, everything you're experiencing is because of the way you're thinking." What does that bring up for you? Like, huh? And I get that. And so, because I've been there. And I've experienced all of those things. All of those things. Illness. Now, I have not experienced an illness that somebody might have identified as a very serious illness. I've experienced financial distress. I've experienced relationship issues. I've experienced job issues. All of that, so I get it. And what we call that in Unity is metaphysical guilt. We get into this idea of metaphysical guilt, that we're responsible for all of those things. And many of us who have been in metaphysics for a while get into this thought thing that we call metaphysical malpractice. Right? Where somebody's experiencing something in their lives and we say, "Oh, honey, what were you thinking?" Or, "What lesson are you trying to learn?" Don't you just want to slap somebody when they say that to you? So I get it. That's what comes up for us. And what I want to say to you today is that I understand that. And what I want to encourage us to understand is that while I still do believe that much of that is true, that we are where we are in the moment. We look at our teachers, the people, Myrtle Fillmore and Charles Fillmore, and what they were experiencing in their lives, the physical things they experienced in their lives. Believe me, they went through a difficult time, and Charles was on a healing journey all the way through his life. All the way through his life. He even said near the very end of his life, before he made his transition, he said something to the effect of, yes, I'm getting old because I think old thoughts, and I'm healing them slowly, one thought at a time. So he was on his journey. We're all on the journey. Wherever we are on that journey, that's where we are. And if we are experiencing whatever we're experiencing in our lives at the moment, whether it's physical, emotional, relational, financial, it's where we are, and that's where we start. And so as we're talking about, and that's really the gist of what I'm wanting to express today and to talk about today, is that when we start from this place of shame and guilt and blame for ourselves, no matter if we're experiencing something, that is the energy that we're taking into this creating something new, and it doesn't work. And if we think of ourselves as being wrong or bad or in some way undeserving or unworthy, then we're starting from a false premise, and we're starting from a place that we then have to surmount in some way. It's just like the reading I shared from Conversations with God. We've come to believe that somehow we are less than this divine creation of God. We have come to take on these ideas that we are undeserving, unworthy, that our desires are selfish, that the things that we want to create in our lives are somehow beyond our grasp, beyond our reach. And what this teaching is about, I think foundational to the teaching, is what we think and believe about ourselves. Because if we start from a place of not believing or believing that we are something bad, or that we blame ourselves, or we're guilting ourselves, or we come from a place of shame, then we're going to continue to recreate that. Charles Fillmore talked a lot about that in some of his writing, about how we take on these ideas of who we are from our culture, from religion, as the reading also spoke about, society, our schools, our peers. And we take all that on, and it becomes this thought field around us. And the truth of us, the divine self of us, is always there. Yet this other stuff is out here in front of us, creating something that we don't really desire. So, excuse me. What's very clear to me about this idea of demonstrating and manifesting, and that everything begins with thought, I believe the primary place that we have to start is our thinking and our beliefs and our feelings about ourselves. Who do you think you are? And we ask ourselves that question, and to work through that. And he says, as the reading also said, that we believe that Jesus worked through that as well. And Charles Fillmore says that he believed that Jesus, the master teacher, gave us a plan for how to do that, how to embrace who we truly are. And the steps that he outlined are, The first one, if I can get this to advance now, is it on? He says, align your self-image with truth. Now, in the scriptures, we see a lot of what Jesus went around saying. Or we say he used a lot of I am statements. I am the light of the world. The Father and I are one. Those who have seen me have seen the Father. Charles Fillmore says that that's because he was conditioning himself with that truth. That Jesus, in his life, also grew up conditioned very much the same way that we did. All of us. And that through the process of aligning his thinking, his self-image with the truth of himself, with the truth, that he began to come into the awareness of who he truly was and is. And that's something that we all get to do. So we can begin by using statements that affirm that for us. And so I want to invite us to do that today. And what I want to say about this first statement is, Charles Fillmore was also very clear, and I appreciate what he says about the power of words. Words carry energy, and that words express consciousness. And some words, when they are heard by us, trigger positive emotions and connection and resonance. Some words, when we hear them, don't create resonance for us. In fact, they create some dissonance for us. And so I would say it's important for all of us to choose the word that resonates with us. There was a long time in my life when hearing the word God brought up a lot of resistance for me. That's not true for me today, but I can understand that it might be true for some people. Same thing with the word Jesus. It doesn't happen for me today, but it used to. So what I want to say is, as we go through these, invite you to choose words that work for you and resonate with you. So I'm going to invite you to say these phrases with me. Let's say it together. I am created as the image likeness of the divine. Or whatever word you want to use there. Now, I want to be clear about that. That I'm not talking about your physicality, your personality. We always want our personality to be involved in that. We can change our personality. Our personality is created from all that other stuff that we take on. We change our personality by first changing our idea of who we are and bringing that forth in our lives. So what I'm talking about when we say, I am created as the image likeness of God, what I'm saying is you are created in the image likeness of harmony, love, order, peace, abundance, health, wealth, all of those ideas that we associate with that. Your divine self, your true self, your higher self, your Christed self, however you want to say that, that is who you are. That is who I am. However, we embrace that. And so this is the process of embracing that beyond all of the judgments we have about ourselves or our lives. And this is where it begins. You can also say, I am a child of God. Lots of people like that. Let's say that together. I am a child of God. Another option, I don't know why this is not working today. I am the Christ of God. Let's say that together. I am the Christ of God. And when we say Christ in unity, what we're talking about is that one idea for all of humanity, the purest idea that we can embrace and bring forth into our lives. And then the last one I have on here is, I am the self-livingness of life. Let's say that together. I am the self-livingness of life. And so what I want to encourage us to do, this step is vital. To align our self-image with the truth of who we are. To remember who we truly are. worthy, perfect, whole, complete expressions of the divine life that is. I invite you, I encourage you to write your own statements. Use these, write your own, say them every day, multiple times a day, to condition your understanding of who you truly are. I think it's such a vital step. The next step that he talks about is to continuously clear your thought field. He doesn't necessarily use those words. He also said at one time that self-awareness is the prelude to Christ consciousness. Charles Fillmore. What he's talking about here is to become aware of those other thoughts that we think, those judgmental thoughts that we have about ourselves, our critical thoughts that we have about ourselves, our habitual way of judging ourselves or thinking about ourselves. And I'm guessing that for most of us, that's pretty habitual. And so it's important for us to be aware of those thoughts when they come up, to invite awareness of when I am judging myself as less than or unworthy, and to use our power to release the energy of that thought. When we have an idea, I am undeserving, and it comes up for us, we can notice it and then choose to release this. The thought that I am unworthy has no power in my life. I choose not to think the thought that I am unworthy any longer and continue to clear it away. Again, it's a process. Man, I wish it would just happen for me like that. It hasn't yet. But like Charles Fillmore said, I'm doing it slowly, one thought at a time. And so again, we are where we are. Wherever we find ourselves is where we are, and that's okay. But we begin now to begin to realign our thinking with who we truly are and to continually clear away that other stuff. It's a practice. The next step he talks about is to embody your truth, to realize that truth, not just to have it as a mental concept, and not just clearing away the thoughts, but to really take it in, to meditate on those ideas, to contemplate those ideas, to continue to read about those ideas, to make them a part of your daily life, and to truly allow them to become a part of your knowing, not just your thinking, but our knowing. And then finally, I added this one, to act as if. To act as if I know the truth about me. What behaviors do I engage in that would say to others or say to myself that I'm unworthy? What behaviors or words do I engage in that would express this idea that I am not a divine child of God? What habitual things do I do? Or words do I speak? And make the choice to change it. And it's our opportunity to do that. Maybe it's just one thing that you can become aware of that you do. Maybe it is not sharing your thoughts with other people, or not expressing yourself in a meeting, or something that would say, oh, well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. How about choosing to act as if I know who I am in truth? I am a worthy, perfect, whole, complete child of the divine life that's living in and through and as me. I know it, and I choose to act as if I know it. What choices would you make if you really knew the truth? And so this process of coming into a greater awareness of who you are is key. I believe it is the first step in demonstrating and manifesting the things that we desire in our lives. It begins right there. And I want to say again that we are where we are, each of us. And that as long as we continue to dwell on the past, as long as we continue to feel the guilt or the shame or the regret of the past, guess what? It's not in the past. We're bringing it into the now. And that's what we're vibrating. That's what we're resonating. I want to be clear, too, that sometimes there are things that happen in the past that we need to clear up. Sometimes we've done things, caused injury to other people, that we want to clear up in the past. But doing that from a place of guilt and shame is really not going to be an effective way to do it. We come into the awareness of who we are, and then we can clean up whatever we need to clean up from the past, from a place of strength and love and understanding and compassion for ourselves and the other. Continuously clean up that stuff that we've taken on. And I don't know about you, but I took on a lot of that. A lot of ideas that are not true. So as they come up, and I want to say too, we don't have to go looking for them. They show up. And they show up when they need to show up. And that's when we can clear them away. Continue to embody that truth through prayer and meditation and contemplation. And then make a choice to do something different, to act differently, to break the habit. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about in one of his books, breaking the habit of being yourself. We have to break the habit by thinking differently, by believing differently, and by acting differently. And a reminder that it's a process. It's a process. Moment by moment, day by day. And I know from personal experience, it can get discouraging. There's something happening, something going on in our lives that we want to change. We want to have a different experience. And we keep doing this stuff. Now, when is it going to happen? Well, again, as I talked about last week, take no thought. Keep coming back to the truth. Seek the kingdom. Know your truth. Know who you are. And live who you are. And then what you experience will begin to change in accordance with that. So, anything else? Just this. Know that you are loved. Know that you are love. Know that you are divine. Know that you are holy. Know that you are perfect, right where you are, in this moment. Claim it. Allow it. be it. There is only the now. And now is your point of power.